Breaking news as we come on the air this noon. Mobile County has now reached double digits with 10 cases. 4 in Baldwin County, 1 in Washington. There are now 283 confirmed cases in the state. 2,812 people have tested so far, and the death toll in the United States has surpassed 800 as the coronavirus continues to spread across the country. With more than 55,000 cases worldwide, there are more than 441,000 cases confirmed and nearly 20,000 deaths worldwide. Now to Washington, where Congress says help is on the way after a deal was reached in the $2 trillion stimulus plan overnight. The wide-ranging measure is intended to limit the effects of COVID-19 on the economy. Tom Costello has more from Washington, D.C.
Overnight on Capitol Hill, Senate leaders striking a deal, agreeing to a massive $2 trillion coronavirus stimulus package, the largest in U.S. history. The deal, which must still be voted on by both the Senate and the House, includes $100 billion of relief funding for hospitals, $200 billion for domestic priorities like transportation, childcare, seniors, and veterans, $500 billion for major corporate loans, and a small business rescue package that's over $350 billion. The bill will also provide a one-time $1,200 check to Americans who make $75,000 a year or less. The Treasury Secretary says President Trump will absolutely sign it. Meanwhile, the president hopes the country will be back up and running full steam ahead by Easter, just 2.5 weeks from now, despite repeated cautions from the nation's top health experts. However, his own task force advisor, Dr. Anthony Fauci, says that deadline must be flexible.
On a literally day-by-day and week-by-week basis, you need to evaluate the feasibility of what you're trying to do.
Dr. Fauci adding there would not be a blanket recommendation for the entire country since cases vary from state to state. New York remains the biggest coronavirus hotspot, accounting for more than half of the country's cases and nearly a third of the deaths. The World Health Organization warns the U.S. has the potential to overtake Italy as the global epicenter of the coronavirus pandemic. The president also doubling down on the idea that economic instability caused by the virus could be worse than the pandemic itself. Tom Costello, NBC News.
Today's trading on Wall Street opened green. Stocks were a little higher after the deal reached on the stimulus bill overnight. You can head over to our website, mynbc15.com, right now under the coronavirus section, and you can read how this stimulus bill will affect you and your family. Unemployment claims are rising all over the country as the pandemic continues to temporarily close businesses or reduce operations. Here in Alabama, numbers have skyrocketed as nearly 17,000 people filed for unemployment in just 2 days. That's all according to preliminary numbers given by the Alabama Department of Labor. In Mobile, the city is bracing for a 30% loss in revenue this month and next month. Mayor Sandy Stimpson says that's about $7.2 million each month, but the mayor warns that could easily double if there are stay-at-home orders issued here. Right now, there are no plans to furlough or lay off employees. The city says that it has about $42 million in a rainy day fund that should help weather this storm.
Have a cushion. We're going to be operating as frugally as we can, but we've got to be able to pay the policemen, the firemen, the garbage truck drivers, and the essential services. And those are the things that are going through our mind, is that how do we continue that, knowing that we really can't predict how long this is going to last.
The hardest hit parts of our state taking extra measures to flatten the curve. The city of Birmingham now under a shelter-in-place order until April 3rd. Right now, Jefferson County has a total of 99 cases. The order also includes parts of Shelby County. Officials say going to the grocery store is okay, and so is going outside to get some fresh air and exercise. As the number of people tested goes up, so will the number of people with the virus. The Mobile County Health Department saying that we may be going about testing all wrong.
I think what is happening is that, previously last week they had opened up testing to allow pretty much anyone with a provider order to be tested, and turns out that only about 10 or 15% of the tests that are being conducted by the state laboratory are coming out positive.
Dr. Murphy says that this puts a dent in the already hard to get a hold of test kits, not to mention the valuable personal protective equipment being used, all seemingly wasted if so many tests come back negative. The Alabama Department of Public Health now saying the patient must meet the following criteria.
The patient is symptomatic with at minimum measured or subjective fever or cough or shortness of breath, and the patient is hospitalized, or the patient is immunocompromised or has comorbidities, or the patient is age 65 or older, or the patient is a healthcare worker, or the patient is associated with a long-term healthcare facility.
If you want to be tested, there are several locations across the Gulf Coast, and we have a full list on our website, mynbc15.com. Doctors will be allowed to treat some coronavirus patients with plasma donated from survivors. The FDA approved this emergency protocol yesterday. The procedure will essentially harvest virus-fighting antibodies from the blood of previously infected patients. For now, it will only be reserved for those who are in dire conditions and risk of death. And while the steps taken to prevent the spread of coronavirus are intended for the greater good, it unfortunately could create more risk for children suffering in unsafe living conditions. Baldwin County child advocates say that they already see an increase of abuse cases during typical school breaks. Now, amid school closures, isolation, and financial hardships, a surge is a real concern.
A very large percentage of our reports come from education personnel, and so we don't have them right now, whether it be sexual abuse, physical abuse, or even emotional abuse.
Nikki Whitaker adds the best way that you can help prevent abuse is if you see something, say something. Amid the outbreak, Waffle House is closing some of its doors for more than 350 locations, and some local locations are included in that number. The 24-hour chain of diners is famous for disaster preparedness, so much that emergency officials incorporate Waffle House's ability to serve food in its measure of a disaster. There are still more than 1,600 locations open at this time. And remember, if you have any questions about the coronavirus, the state has both a hotline that you can call and an email address you can reach. Both are right there on your screen, so make sure you get that information. NBC 15 News, we are dedicated to keeping you aware during this pandemic. We have an entire section on our website dedicated to our coverage of the crisis, and you can find it at mynbc15.com.